Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. In fact, good day, everyone. I am Reverend Nikki Ashwood, Program Executive for the Just Community of Women and Men here at the World Council of Churches. On behalf of myself and my other co organizers for this event, Mr. Dinesh Suna and Reverend Alexa Dava, I wish to welcome you to our fourth annual menstrual health webinar. Yes, I know you're saying to yourself, fourth already? Yes. And why June 4 when Menstrual Health Hygiene Day is actually May 28th? Well, sometimes it's a case of better late than never. And we, along with our partners, Norwegian Church Aid and Partnerships for Religion and Development, welcome you and thank you for making the effort to join us for yet another webinar. Some people have already reached out to me to say, Reverend Ashwood, Nikki, Miss Ashwood, menstrual health is a very private event and it's women's issues. Why do we have to be in this space talking about this kind of stuff? Let's keep it where it belongs, in the private arena. Fortunately or unfortunately, there are folks who don't have access to the resources to make menstrual hygiene feasible for them wherever they are. Not to mention that for the girls who are going through their monthlies and happen to be embarrassed because they weren't prepared, because not everyone's cycle occurs on clockwork, it isn't as private as it would like to be. I remember many a moment when I had a mini heart attack, realizing that I wasn't quite prepared for what happened. For the men who are obliged to assist their wives, their partners, their relatives because of dysmenorrhea issues or accessibility issues, they also need to find that menstrual health is destigmatized. So today, we gather to break the taboo, to speak about menstrual health from a faith perspective, but to also invite us to think about those who are obliged to go far and near and wide in search of the products they need for their menstrual hygiene. I know that we probably are speaking to the choir, but perhaps because you are here, you will find tidbits that are useful for you, and more critically, you will spread the word in your communities so that next year, when we gather, we will be gathering not just with you, but with a wider choir. So, we have a lineup of persons from Christian and other religious backgrounds. We have a lineup of males and females who are all ready to share with us about this very important issue. But before we get into that, I invite my colleague, Reverend Alexa Dava, to lead us in our opening prayer. Alexa, Reverend Alexa, is currently serving with the WCC as the program staff with responsibilities for human dignity and reproductive health here at the World Council of Churches. She's been with us since 2023. She's Filipina American and she's ordained with the Christian Church's Disciples of Christ, and she leads the WCC's working group on HIV and reproductive health. Thank you for being here so early in the morning for you, Reverend Alexa. And please lead us in prayer and through the next phase of our webinar.
Thank you, Reverend Nikki. And it's not too early. It's 9 o'clock. So it's not too early at all. Will you all pray with me? God of dignity and of justice, I pray for this time that we are about to enter into learning and discerning about menstrual health and hygiene. I pray for all of the speakers that your presence would be made known in this space and that you would empower each of us to pay attention to our local contexts and see what it is that you would have us do about this precious issue. I pray for everyone that is facing a challenge in accessing menstrual products, accessing menstrual health and menstrual health care. Make us your hands and feet and help us to deeper embody your love and justice in the world. I thank you for this opportunity today, and I pray all of this in your holy name. Amen. All right, I would now like to introduce to you all our moderator, Mr. Dinesh Suna. Dinesh is the program executive of Land, Water, and Food Advocacy and the Ecumenical Water Network with the World Council of Churches. And he is based in Geneva, and he has been in these roles since 2012. He's also the focal point for the WCC's working group on land, water, and food justice. And he has worked with several ecumenical organizations in his home country in India since the 1990s. Currently, he's one of the co-leads of the Partnership of Religions and Sustainable Development workstream on environment, water, and climate action. And he's a founding member of the People's Water Forum. He's also a member of the Water Tenure Experts Group of the UN FAO. So without further ado, I introduce Dinesh.
Okay, thank you so much, Reverend Alexa, Reverend Nikki Ashwood, and all the other speakers that I would introduce soon. And my dear colleague Walter, who is behind the scene, our technical expert who is helping us in today's Zoom to run it smoothly. Friends, my colleagues have already mentioned that this is not for the first time that we have been addressing this pertinent issue, which impact half of world's population, every woman in this world, and at some point in time. My colleague Nikki also has highlighted that how often this particular issue has been shunned away and never discussed publicly, let alone in this sort of forum. And particularly religious institutions and communities have been shying away from addressing menstrual health and hygiene for a very long time. The World Menstrual Hygiene Day, as Nikki reminded us that it was 28th of May, this itself is not for a very long time, only for about 10, 11 years that the world is now observing this important day to create awareness. However, it is a lot more to be done because we still see over 500 million women are experiencing what we call period poverty. And therefore, we as faith-based organizations, mostly present here today, must take lead in addressing these issues and fight against stigma and the taboos around this topic. We have, you're seeing me as a man moderating this session, and I have joined my colleagues, Nikki and Alexa, in the past 4 years organizing this because I come from the wash background, and therefore I bring in the hygiene, the wash perspective, sanitation perspective. But my colleague Alexa brings in the reproductive health perspective, and my colleague Nikki brings in the women's rights and dignity aspect. So this is how we join hands together. And we as men, particularly to all the men that present here, I, including myself, we first of all need to address this issue. It's not a women's issue. It is men's issue because men have made this stigma and a taboo in our society. So with these introductory remarks, I would now dive into the speakers, asking them to bring in different perspective. We have 2 rounds. In the first round, we will speak about a faith perspective, what are the different faith informed approaches to menstrual health and hygiene. We have in our midst at least two speakers who would speak, one on Christian perspective and the other one Sikh religion perspective. The first one, I would ask my colleague, Reverend Alexa Dava, who was already introduced by my colleague Nikki, but just to underline, she is the focal point for WCC's health and healing programs, reproductive, sexual and reproductive health project. And she's based in the US. And without further ado, Alexa, let me ask you this broad question. You're free to unpack it at your own pace. That how does addressing menstrual injustice align with the Christian faith? You yourself a young ordained priest. So over to you in the next 7-8 minutes.
Thank you, Dinesh. I will just share my screen here. All right, is this accessible? Great. Okay, so this year's World Menstrual Health and Hygiene Day had the theme of Together for a Period-Friendly World. And so for my time, I just wanted to give a brief overview of what it might look like from a Christian perspective to think about challenges that people have in relation to menstrual hygiene. So first, I will contextualize menstrual health from my context, because not all people experience menstrual health and hygiene challenges equally. And then I will give a Christian approach, which is just one perspective grounded in Christian values. And then I will introduce some suggestions for churches, for those lay leaders or church leaders who are with us today. So just to talk a little bit more about menstrual health and periods. Period poverty is the inability to access or afford menstrual products in order to manage a period. So it is this idea that taking care of your periods in our current world is a luxury that many people cannot afford to do. And it shouldn't be a luxury. It is a basic biological function, and everyone deserves the right to health. And so this disparity, the way it manifests here in my country, in the United States, 2 in 5 people struggle to purchase period products. 20% of people who menstruate in the US either leave school early or miss school altogether because of a lack of access to menstrual products. Menstrual hygiene items are not covered by US government assistance programs, which are now being cut at an even higher rate than usual. And I just wanted to introduce certain groups in the US who are at a higher risk of being vulnerable to not having access to menstrual hygiene products. And that is Indigenous people who are, the US government has systematically discriminated and put into remote areas. They've been forced to live in more remote areas. And then people who are incarcerated also have a harder time getting adequate care when they face menstrual health challenges. So that's a little bit about the state of menstrual health and hygiene in my country. And there are a few reasons which we will dig a little bit deeper into, and our other speakers will dig into this a little bit more. One primary reason, and these are all interlinked, is economic injustice. People who are poor just have an increased inability to purchase these products that are taxed and becoming increasingly expensive. I will also point out here environmental stewardship number 3. The materials that make these menstrual products are threatened by our lack of environmental stewardship. And then women are just half of our population are more likely to experience challenges with menstrual health and hygiene, even though both men and women experience challenges when women face gender-based violence, but gender inequality is another component as well, and these are all interlinked. And so when we think about, these big systemic challenges and how they manifest, what does it mean for Christians to come and address this issue? The World Council of Churches in December published a framework for churches to address reproductive health, which menstrual health is a part of reproductive health. And I just wanted to give a little bit of some pieces of what that framework contains. And the core concept within this Christian framework is the concept of discipleship. So as followers of Christ, we are Christ's disciples. To be a disciple, it means to be a student, to be a learner, to be a student and follow Christ as a guide. And in that seeking to embody Christ's ways, how do we know what that means to be a disciple of Christ? Well, we look to the Gospels and we see the way that Christ treated all people with dignity. And here I will quote something from the Love, Justice, and Reproductive Health framework about what it means for Christ to treat women with dignity. Christ treats women with dignity during a time and place when women were viewed as less important than men. Christ healed women who were sick. He advocated for their freedom from shame, and he entrusted them to carry out his message. As God's beloved people, we each have inherent dignity and worth. All people, including women and girls, are important in the body of Christ and should be treated with equal value. To be Christ's disciple is to commit oneself to the study and practice of his teachings. We see this in Christ's affirmation of Mary, in the story of Mary and Martha, where Christ affirms Mary's decision to learn and discern and implement his teachings and sit at Christ's feet. And Christ respected women's ability to learn and choose for themselves how best to live. So just as Christ nurtured the formation and education of women and his disciples, we can follow this model as Christ's disciple and seek to embody ways that Christ treated people with dignity. And then the other component to this framework is the notion of justice. Now, what is justice? I really like public theologian Cornel West's quote where he says, "Justice is what love looks like in public." And we know in Luke, the command to love our neighbor as ourself is modeled in the story of the Good Samaritan in the Gospel of Luke, where Christ answers this question to a lawyer who asks, what does it mean? Who is my neighbor? And Christ kind of rejects the premise of the question, saying, not who is your neighbor. He doesn't answer the question, who is your neighbor? He answers, how do we love our neighbor? And many of us know the story. Someone is attacked on a journey, and a Samaritan person comes and gets that person access to the care that they need. He covers the care that they need, feeds that person, and connects them to the resources that they need to live and heal. And so when we think about justice, it means that all people have access to the resources that they need to live and heal. And so when we think about what it means to be a disciple of Christ, I wanted to highlight dignity and justice as we think about addressing these menstrual health disparities. So what does that look like on the ground? What does that mean actually for churches? I know we will hear about churches that are addressing this topic at a systemic level, but at the smaller level, the churches as a physical location and as the body of Christ, we can ensure that we have facilities that are private and hygienic for people to care for themselves when they're menstruating, having proper menstrual bins in our washrooms. And then the other one is implementing educational programs where we are introducing what the menstrual cycle is and introducing information that is scientifically accurate about our bodies that God beautifully designed. And what does it mean to relate to each other in these bodies? What does it mean to relate to ourselves and care for ourselves in these bodies? These are also things that churches can introduce. So I will leave that there. I know we have a great lineup of speakers coming up. So I just wanted to give you my sources, and I look forward to further discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Alexa, who is a young theologian and a colleague of mine at the WCC, and I'm very happy that you have brought the very key essence that is so important to address this issue from a Christian perspective is dignity and justice. I think that sums up as true disciples of Jesus Christ. That dignity and justice is denied to millions, especially those who are experiencing period poverty. So thank you very much for that. And in the past, this is our fourth year observing the Menstrual Hygiene, Health and Hygiene Day. And we always had different faiths coming and speaking. We have had the Hindu perspective, Islamic perspective. We also had the Jewish perspective last year from Rabbi Kaplan. But for the first time, we have now a Sikh perspective, and all the more important that we have a Sikh man is coming here to talk about this issue, which is affecting women so vastly. And we have Dr. Tejinder Singh Rawal in our midst. He is a board member of the India Peace Center, an affiliate of the National Council of Churches in India. He's based in Nagpur, in mid-central India. And he is a progressive thinker, and he has been associated with several issues related to peace and justice, ecological justice, gender justice, and so on. And I'm so happy that Dr. Tejinder Singh, who is by profession a chartered accountant, but today he'll be talking from his faith perspective in Sikh religion, whether the religion becoming an enabler or an obstacle in your religion, and just share some of the perspective. How do you address menstrual health and hygiene, which is a big issue even in India? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dinesh Sona, for inviting me to this very important conclave where we are discussing such an important issue, which, as has been said by other speakers, there's sometimes stigma attached to it. Sometimes there are certain things which are not sometimes openly discussed. So I'm very happy that you come forward and asking a man to discuss about it is a very good thing that you have done. So it's an honor to be a part of this meaningful interfaith conversation on menstrual hygiene and to speak on behalf of the Sikh perspective. Let me begin with a personal reflection. As you said in the beginning, is it difficult to talk about menstruation as a man? Perhaps in many cultures it is. But Sikhism teaches us to speak the truth, serve with discrimination, serve without discrimination, and honor the natural process of life without shame or fear. Silence breeds stigma. Breaking that silence is our responsibility as men and as people of faith. Sikhism rejects the idea that menstruation is impure. This was a big reform that happened in this country where traditionally menstruation was associated with impurity. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the founder of Sikh faith, directly challenged such superstition. He said in Guru Granth Sahib, page number 472, he says, if pollution attaches to birth, then pollution is everywhere. Pollution is removed by true knowledge alone. And when asked about menstruation, he very firmly said very unforgettable words. Page 473 of Guru Granth Sahib, Soko manda akhiye jis jamme rajan, which translated into English would mean, from women, man is born, from within woman, man is conceived. So why call her bad? From her, kings are born. In Sikhism, there is no bar on women, whether menstruating or not, from participating in any religious, household, or community activity. A woman may sing kirtan, lead the prayer, cook in the langar, which is the community kitchen, read from the Guru Granth Sahib, or serve as a granthi or the registrar or the clergy in the Sikh temple. The Gurdwara is open to all without prejudice. But while the teachings are quite clear, the lived reality in India is far more complicated. Even today, millions of girls. I hope I'm audible to everybody. Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you. Uh, Even today, millions of girls and women in India face stigma, exclusion, and humiliation just for menstruating. Many are denied entries into the temple or kitchen. I know families, very progressive Indian families, where women would have to stay away from kitchen for 4 or 5 days. I know very progressive Indian families where uh, a menstruating woman is asked to move to another city because she belongs to the family which lives in a holy city. So she's asked to move to Bombay, where they have a very rich family, where they have a apartment. She goes and stays there for 4 days and then comes back. So this is very, very humiliating and a stigmatic situation in the country. So many are denied entry into the temples or kitchen. They're asked to sleep separately or stay away from prayers. And in rural areas, they are forced to isolate to unsafe places. Even in cities, this happens sometimes. These taboos are often worse at the intersection of patriarchy and caste, which, when they intersect, they cause a very difficult situation for those women. Dalit and Adivasi women, particularly, face added layer of untouchability, shame, and denial of access to clean toilets or sanitary products. Menstruation is weaponized as a tool to control and tool for marginalization. Sikhism certainly stands in radical opposition to this. It offers a vision where no one is impure, where no woman is excluded, and where all are equal in the eyes of the divine. This vision is not theoretical. I'll give you some examples of how Sikhism is handling this issue. Khalsa Aid is a well-known international organization of the Sikh community. They provided free sanitary pads and restroom to women during the farmers' protest. If some of you would have heard of the farmers' protest held recently in India, it was the largest protest ever done against the policy of the government. Thousands and thousands of men and women and children gathered near Delhi, in the state of Haryana and Punjab, and were opposing the anti-farmer policy of the government. They stayed there for months together. The Khalsa Aid made a sanitary pad station there and restroom for women, and they were ensuring that menstrual needs are not neglected during this mass mobilization. The Sikh Aid Foundation runs a program called No Spot, which distributes reusable, sustainable sanitary pads to underprivileged girls and organizes awareness workshop in villages and schools. There is another Sikh foundation called Hemkund Foundation, which has been proactively supplying thousands of sanitary napkins to schools in tribal areas and low-income neighborhoods. These acts embody seva, selfless service, which is a core principle of Sikhism. Many of you perhaps must have heard of what we call langar in Sikhism, the community kitchen. But some of you, and many of you may not know Langar is about the kitchen where we serve food to all communities, irrespective of caste and creed. Creed, and they come together and eat together. Many of you may not know is that there is a langar which the community doesn't talk much about. It's the langar of the sanitary napkins. We supply free sanitary pads to lots of underprivileged and poor people. The community does that. We call it the sanitary langar and so on. It is supplied free of cost to them. The community also runs uh, uh, a factory for making sanitary pads so that it could be supplied to the people. One small example in my own city, Nagpur, which Mr. Dinesh Sona talked about as a city in the center of the country. There's one lone Sikh who rides a motorcycle, a bike, and gives langar to everybody. He goes to the poor people's places on his bike with carrying langar, the food community kitchen, and serves to them. He also carries sanitary napkins for the needy people wherever they need it. And people know that when this gentleman comes on his bike, he carries sanitary napkins, and young girls would stand there and would ask for the napkins to be given to them. So they are all doing a lot of uh, charity in the form of seva. It is not charity, I would say; it's a justice. Uh, to conclude, I would say that menstruation is not a problem. The stigma associated with it is the biggest problem. The Sikh tradition gives us the language, value, and courage to fight the stigma. As a man, I say this openly and with conviction. Talking about menstruation is not unmanly. What is unmanly is staying silent in the face of injustice. Let us all continue this journey of awareness and dignity together. Uh, while I conclude, I would once again offer my gratitude and thanks to the organizers for coming out and discussing such an important topic. I think we all need to discuss. We all need to remove the stigma and the taboo attached to it, and come forward and see to it that the people who suffer because because of lack of pads, because of the stigma associated with it, because of the barriers that people try to create uh, on account of menstruation, uh, we are able to resolve that together as faith communities. Thank you very much for inviting me here, and I'm very happy, and I congratulate the organizers for taking up this very important issue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tejinder Singh. I think I wish we had a little more time to continue listening to you, because this is really, you have brought in very encouraging practices that is followed in the Sikh tradition, and also been very open to the Sikh scriptures are speaking about something, but the lived reality being something else. But despite that, through various of your Khalsa Aid and other organizations that belongs to the Sikh tradition, you have been open and dared to address it, as well as helping the women and children who are suffering in daily life, facing a period of poverty. And one thing that really touched us also, you really said menstruation is not the problem, but the stigma and taboo is the problem. Men are the problem. I would say very boldly here, this is a man-made problem. In the patriarchy is weaponizing menstruation. These are very powerful thoughts, and we're so glad we had you. And please stay tuned, because other participants would like to interact with you and other speakers. So friends, we would finish the first round here. We won't take your questions right away, but please put them in your chat. I'm so happy that you are saying where you all are from. If you have not introduced yourself, please do so in the chat, but also start writing your questions, so that and whom it is addressed to, and we will definitely make sure that at least 15 minutes is given for Q&A. So we would like to now transition. Before transitioning to the second round, let's watch a couple of videos. These would be some introductory videos addressing the stigma and taboo around menstruation. And some of them are focused in Africa, and therefore menstruation impacts everyone and the period poverty impacts everyone, but this was a particular context in Africa. So I would request my colleague Walter to kindly play these two videos back to back for about 5 minutes, and then we go to the next round. Thank you very much. Stay tuned.
Is period blood like dirty blood?
Period blood is definitely not dirty blood. It's just a natural bodily fluid that flows out of a lady when she's on her period, aka her menstrual cycle. So no need to be freaked out or get grossed out. It's all part of our incredible bodies doing their thing. So you know what? Embrace the uniqueness, celebrate your body, and know that period blood is a normal and natural part of the journey to being you. This blood is anything but dirty or impure. It's mainly made up of shed uterine lining, a bit of blood, and some mucus. Nothing to be alarmed about. Now, you might have noticed that period blood can sometimes have a distinct odor or appear darker. But hold up, it doesn't mean it's dirty in the sense of being unclean or unhealthy. It's just mixing with vaginal discharge or might have been exposed to air for some time. Totally natural stuff. So like any other bodily fluid, it's important to maintain good personal hygiene during menstruation. That means using the right menstrual products such as menstrual cups, pads, tampons, and changing them regularly. It's all about being comfortable and avoiding potential infections. So to sum it all up, period blood is a normal and natural bodily fluid that does not pose any inherent health risks. It's a part of the body's regular reproductive process.
When crisis hits, humanitarian actors take action to support affected communities. Needs are often complex and can change rapidly. Humanitarian actors need to make decisions and prioritize their actions for the best possible response. In this process, the menstrual hygiene needs of women and girls are often overlooked or not considered at all, mainly due to humanitarian staff and decision makers lacking knowledge of the risks and impact on women and girls if their needs are not met. So what is menstrual hygiene management, or MHM? It's about making sure women and girls can privately, safely, and hygienically manage their monthly periods with confidence and dignity. An estimated 26 million women and girls around the world are displaced right now, disrupting how they manage their basic personal hygiene needs. In recent years, efforts driven by the IFRC and other humanitarian actors have strengthened understanding and gathered evidence on MHM. Here are some of the challenges and actions needed to effectively respond to menstrual hygiene needs. Girls may get a mix of practical information, superstitions, and cultural beliefs before they get their period, or no information at all on how to manage it and stay healthy. Clear and factual information on the menstrual cycle and good hygiene practices need to be provided. During any distributions, demonstrate how to use, care, and dispose of personal items. Taboos, social norms, and misconceptions, especially around blood and sexual health, may limit women and girls from discussing their needs, influence the types of materials used, and can complicate disposal and cleaning. Engage with women, girls, men, and boys about their experiences, preferences, cultural beliefs, and challenges with MHM, and work together to address these. Bloodstains on clothing and worry about menstrual leaks can prevent or restrict girls and women from daily activities. Consult directly with women and girls on their preferences and make sure they have continuous access to essential items, as well as pads and underwear. Distribute items to support washing, drying, and disposal. Finding a private, safe, clean, and easily accessible toilet and bathing area can be difficult and may contribute to increased risk of sexual and gender-based violence. Ensure that private and safe toilets, washing, bathing, and disposable facilities are available and that women and girls feel comfortable to use them, paying close attention to culture, proximity from housing, lighting, and solid waste. Menstruation is a very personal thing. All of these components and actions are influenced by individual preferences, age, sociocultural context, and barriers, like lack of water. These core actions ensure a holistic approach to addressing the three essential components of MHM's support to women and girls: access to materials, private and safe facilities, and information. That's why male and female volunteers and staff need basic knowledge about menstruation, as well as the confidence to talk about it and advocate for it, so they can involve and engage with women, girls, boys, and men right from the beginning, and continuously monitor the use, satisfaction, and challenges of women and girls, including following up after any distributions in both formal and informal ways. Based on all this feedback, staff and volunteers would revise activities so they can continue to address the changing needs of women and girls. Because working together, coordinating with others, and sharing our lessons with the humanitarian community is the only way to ensure that in the future, menstrual hygiene needs of women and girls during crisis can be properly addressed. Always.
So, friends, those two videos were definitely very informative, and there are tons of information out there. I think, as I could also read a lot in the chat, these should be used for creating awareness, but also in the school curriculum, these topics should be introduced and so on. But in the second video, we also saw a little bit about menstrual hygiene management, even during emergencies. Where there is a conflict or a war and internally displaced people. So it's a nice segue to go to the next round, and let me take the opportunity to introduce our first speaker, Ms. Alexandra Marakovska, and she is joining us from Ukraine. And we are very grateful to you, Alexandra. And she works for HEX, EPER, it's the Swiss Church Aid, and she is working alongside with our co-organizer of this event, that is the Norwegian Church Aid. And I'm so happy that you are able to join us, Alexandra. She is a specialist with a focus on gender-based violence and mental health and psychosocial support for survivor women and girls that are at risk. And being at the conflict zone where Ukraine is now experiencing a war, and being there and addressing this particular need that is often can be overlooked in an emergency situation, and therefore it even makes the women more vulnerable. So the detailed introduction can be already seen on the chat, so I would not continue to read. But I ask you, Alexandra, that please share about what you are doing and what can be done to have a better access to menstrual health and hygiene during humanitarian emergencies, where sustainable solutions can be provided with dignity. So over to you, your next 7 minutes or so.
Thank you. Let me share my screen first. Today I'd like to share our experience and perspective on the role of Dignity Kits, not just a form of humanitarian assistance, but as a tool for restoring dignity, building resilience, and challenging stigma around menstruation, especially among women and girls affected by displacement and conflict in Ukraine. Since the escalation of the full-scale war, over 10 million people have been displaced. Let me try. You can see it now. Women and girls make up a majority of this population, and many of them have fled with almost nothing, live in collective centers, or are constantly on the move between host communities and temporary housing. For them, access to menstrual hygiene is not guaranteed. Wash facilities may be insufficient, sanitary products unaffordable or unavailable, and privacy limited. This leads not only to discomfort, but to shame, isolation, and reduced mobility, which ultimately impacts their mental health, education, and sense of safety. Dignity kits are often seen as a standard non-food item, but in our work, they are a gateway to connection, empowerment, and protection. At Hacksapper, we've been distributing contextualized, tailored dignity kits to displaced and conflict-affected women and girls across regions like Kharkivska, Odessa, and Mykolaiivska Oblast, prioritizing those in remote or underserved areas. First and foremost, what creates a dignity kit is three components: hygiene items, for example, soap, shampoo, toothbrush and toothpaste, wet wipes, washing powder; menstrual hygiene management, like sanitary pads, sometimes tampons, underwear, intimate wipes; and items for protection, like flashlight, power bank, and informational leaflets. These items may seem simple, but to a woman who has fled shelling or to a girl sharing a room with extended family in a shelter, they offer a sense of privacy, control, and normality. It is worth highlighting that our dignity kits are developed in alignment with UNFPA guidelines and are tailored to the specific needs of women and girls, as identified through focus group discussions, post-distribution monitoring, and other feedback mechanisms. Additionally, based on the feedback and Ukrainian context, we have created specialized dignity kits by including urological pads to meet the specific need of elderly women. Additionally, we would like to mention that in order to support dignity during the distributions, we made the decision to remove all the logos from the boxes during distributions, so women can stop feeling the stigmatized that they received an assistance from organization and just carry the box or the bag with the items. And it was not just the decision made by us, it was based on the focus group discussions from women and girls after post-distribution monitoring. So beyond the practical, excuse me, somehow it's too far. Yeah. Beyond the practical use, dignity kits are part of a broader effort to challenge the taboos around menstruation. When we distribute kits in women and girls safe spaces or during mobile outreach, we combine it with informational discussions or awareness sessions on menstruation, hygiene, and body awareness. These moments are powerful. Women and girls realize that they are not alone in their discomfort, and they gain language to speak about it, sometimes for the first time. In some rural communities, we've even had women say, I didn't know I could talk about this without any shame. The Ukrainian context is distinct in its scale of need, which with millions affected, yet resources remain limited. To ensure dignity kits reach those most at risk, we prioritize distributions based on clearly defined vulnerability criteria. These include women with disabilities, adolescent girls at risk of exploitation, elderly women, internally displaced people residing in informal shelters or remote rural areas, women and girls on the move, such as those displaced by the destruction of the Kakhovka Dam or the escalation of Kharkiv in the Kharkiv region, who often flee without nothing. So our approach is need-driven and flexible, enabling us to respond rapidly where the need is greatest. We also work closely with local women-led organizations and social services to identify the most vulnerable. Through our mobile protection units, we deliver kits directly to these groups, ensuring no one is left behind due to logistics or stigma. Menstrual hygiene is not secondary. It is fundamental to protection, dignity, and health. In time of crisis, what we include in a dignity kit and how we distribute it sends a strong message. We see you, we respect you, and you deserve safety and care, even in times of displacement. We hope that together, humanitarian actors, faith-based organizations, and communities, we can continue to normalize menstruation, scale up equitable access, and advocate for long-term solutions that keep dignity at the center. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Alexandra. I think that was a very, very important presentation where you not only, of course, underline the importance of addressing this particular issue, which often may not get prioritized by humanitarian aid organizations or the local communities when food and water and shelter are given more priority. But this is, I'm so glad that you and HEX and NCA are all looking into this, but all the more making it more as a dignity as the key focus, so that women and girls do not shy away from receiving these important protections and kits, which otherwise they may not come forward to receive it. So I'm so happy, and I'm sure you will be receiving some questions and comments. And I'm happy to see when NCA friends are here. So hopefully you both will be able to take some questions. Friends, now the next speaker we have Ivans Nacy. And I would like my colleagues to also put the introduction in the chat so that in the interest of time, I would not go further, but I would like to ask you, Ivans, a question. Can you share about the intersectional C-Judge Act model, which is very popular in the sociological field? So can you elaborate on the C-Judge Act model and how you are implementing it in your context to build empathy and drive local action, especially regards to menstrual hygiene and health?
Thank you so much, Dinesh, and it's a pleasure being here. I agree with the previous speakers that menstrual hygiene is not a men's issue, it's a human issue that all of us need to be able to engage, to support, show care, compassion, and to deal with stigma. Maybe as an opening, why am I engaged in this work? I think that would be important. I'm a son of a mother and a father to a daughter. And of course, I'm a lay theologian in the Anglican Church working with young people. And two things make me engage in this work, which I experienced in my life. One, when I was in Form 1 in high school, seeing a young girl, I was in a mixed school, and I saw a young girl who had her first experience with her menstruation, and the response was quite disheartening from the rest of us. And I have wanted to look for the girl and apologize because I feel we stigmatized the experience out of ignorance. The second is an experience which I will share, a story of a young girl who is our success story. But again, let me say that menstruation is, in a part of the world, I come from Kenya, is shrouded in silence and stigma. And of course, it causes girls to miss school, some to drop out of school. During the commemoration of the Menstrual Health Day, startling statistics were shared by the government that 2 out of 3 girls in Kenya access menstrual health products through sexual exploitation. And that is, again, disheartening. Church is complicit in this matter because they sustain the shame. There are limited access to products. And of course, the wash facilities are inadequate. And Dinesh, you mentioned your relevance to this here. Again, intersectionality here is that when you think menstrual health and any opportunity, any space that does not support a young girl to be able to be in charge of access could potentially also make her to contract HIV, face gender-based violence and also become, increase the cases of teenage pregnancy. So those are some of the things that also we are seeing as we work. Now, Siaya, Kenya, where I work, is deeply religious, strong in cultural identity, and there is poverty, gender-based violence, there are cultural taboos and religious silences on menstruation. I've talked about girls missing school. But then why did we now start working on this, particularly the intersectional Judgment Act? The story of a young girl that now is our success story and has enabled us to continue with this work, who, for lack of a menstrual health product or pads, was violated by her own teacher, who promised to give her a pads. And at the violation, two things happened. She got an STI. She also got pregnant. Of course, those are three things, because that was also defilement. And when this story went on and she got pregnant, the parent, out of shame, decided to procure an abortion through unskilled people. And this girl almost lost her life. At this point of time, the mother is the person who did this, and this created a rift in the family to the extent that the mother and the father now separated. Now, that separation, during the ensuing moments of separation, the school board chairman, in the very unfortunate circumstances, offers to marry this girl as a second wife. And this was like, this girl is going to lose an opportunity. So we picked this girl as a family, me together with my wife, to support the girl. But even as we did this, we realized that this is a story that is representative of the many things that are going on in the community as a result of systemic failures. And so we asked ourselves, what is it that we need to do? Borrowing from my theological training and training background in development studies and community work, we thought around engaging religious leaders, the community, the schools, and the various people to engage, having faith as a nexus around this. Because the reason why the mother helped this girl, supported this girl to procure abortion secretly, is that for her, that was going to be an embarrassment, because she's a church person. And so we realized that there is an urgent need for faith-anchored and community-driven action. And so the intersectional Judgment Act is basically a community-based dialogue tool that integrates faith and health, looking at science, religion, and policy at the same time, and how that can be, used in a way that can support and create safer spaces. So what we believe in is that if our communities are mobilized to see the injustice of menstrual inequality and sexual exploitation, and judge through the lens of dignity, gender justice, and healing, and act together through integrated systems, then menstrual dignity, gender equity, youth empowerment will become a lived reality, ending period poverty, transactional sex, and generational circles of shame and silence. I want to say that in the intersectional Judgment Act, what is it that we do? The seeing is we listen deeply. We encourage deep listening. We also encourage in the judge reflection, critical reflection through faith and justice lens. And of course, in the act, we encourage acting boldly and collaboratively. And so, by listening to, learning from, and living in deep solidarity with those in the margins, we co-create a future where period dignity is a shared value led by communities and faith actors. So we work together. And so in the C, in the listening, we engage with the communities through storytelling, just listening to stories and lived experiences. And in this, we look at the stories of success out of empowerment, the stories of failure out of disinformation and misinterpretation of sacred text, and also misrepresentation of our culture in a manner that is stigmatizing. And then we ask, where could the gap be? Is it in the teachings? Is it in the way we interpret the beliefs, the culture, and the practices? We have community dialogues with girls, with boys, and we encourage this collaborative effort with also faith leaders and elders who are also the custodians of culture. We create safe spaces where barriers and stigma can surface through conversations and be given a name and be told this one is a stigmatizing conversation, and this is a barrier. We also frame theology, and I want to quickly say, for example, that in our theological conversation, for example, we use Luke chapter 8, verse 43 to 48, which is the story of the bleeding woman. Of course, in the See, Judge, and Act, there are many other intersecting issues that we discuss, say GBV, all the other things that are within SRHR. But in the context of menstrual hygiene, we use the book of Luke, chapter 43, chapter 8, verse 43 to 48. And in this book, we look at it through three things: the biblical insight in the book, the application of that biblical insight, and the message to be able to be taken, to be able to reorganize conversations around the issue of menstrual hygiene. And so any other issue, including the issue of menstrual hygiene, for this book, we look at it in terms of 5 thematic areas. How does the book, in a way, raise the issues of stigma, and how is that relevant in our lives? The second one is discrimination and exclusion. How can it be misinterpreted in a way that brings out that? Then the third area is access to care and justice in the book. How is it brought out? And the fourth one is faith empowerment. How does that again also come out in the way Jesus treats the woman with the issue of the blood? And then the also issue is safe and supportive space. How does that, come out in this? And we do this so that we are able to build collective awareness and conviction that menstruation and menstrual hygiene is not sickness. It is a gift and needs to be supported. There are health issues that we need to be able to bring on board. And so we do that during our dialogues. So the act is supporting survivor storytelling and psychosocial support.
Evans, I need you to wrap up in 30 seconds now, please.
Okay, thank you very much. So what is it that we've been able to do? In acting, we come up with collective actions that we are supposed to be able to do. For example, there are, summons that shift mindsets from shame to dignity. Those are things that are already ongoing. We are supporting through distribution of dignity kits. It has been talked about here. It's such an important thing. There are menstrual education in churches that we are doing. And we've seen reduced absenteeism. We are currently, because this is intersecting, supporting 17 adolescent girls who have been pregnant, and we have re-entered them in school after giving birth. And there is growing community support. And so we say that contextual faith-rooted advocacy society. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry I had to interrupt you in between because just went a little over time, but you brought in such important and concerning matter. Many of us may not have heard that in exchange of period products, menstrual hygiene kits, women and girls will have to have transactional sex, and as a result, some teenager girls becoming pregnant. And how the faith institutions, religious institutions in the region are complicit to this. The parents, the family are kind of knowingly getting into this sort of traps. I am really shocked and saddened by this. And I think as faith-based organizations, we can do a lot. And I'm so glad you have used the biblical texts, the familiar ones with the women, the flow of blood, as a kind of a pedagogical context to talk to the congregation members, to educate them through these Bible studies. I would love that you share these Bible studies with us so that we can also share it with the other churches. Thanks so much, Evans. Friends, we have the last speaker, then the floor will be for the participants that you will be asking your questions. We have the third and the last but not the least is Reverend Lillian Annie Casper. And she is a pastor of a Lutheran church in South Africa. And she is a dedicated activist of women's rights to overcome gender-based violence. And I would ask my colleague Walter to put up her bio. And I would straight away go to ask you, Reverend Lillian. So tell us a little more about the Dignity Kit distribution project that the Lutheran Communion is doing in your region. And also, how is it going? What was the challenging aspects? And also, do you see economic justice vis-a-vis menstrual health as some sort of intersections there? So your next 7 minutes or so. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to be with you this afternoon. Just a little bit of background. I serve as the Executive Director of the Lutheran Communion in Southern Africa. We are a sub-regional expression of the Lutheran World Federation, one of 3 in Africa. So we work in 12 countries, and we have about 2 million Lutherans and Moravians within the Lutheran Communion. But the head office or the communion office is based in Johannesburg in South Africa. So we run this program through our gender justice program, and we have different pillars in the gender justice program. And one of the pillars in the gender justice program is about youth sensitization around gender issues, around SRHR, and around gender-based violence, because of course our people come from violent societies, violent homes. Violence is endemic in this region that we serve. So young people experience violence already at a very early age and are exposed to violence and sexual violence and physical violence at a very young age. So that is just the region that I represent. So in response to this, we have a program that we run in 2 places, one in the school, and one we have established a partnership with the South African Police Service. The project that we run in the school is that we will choose a specific school that we go to as Luxa, and we encourage our member churches to do the same. We will go and negotiate with the principal that we get 1 full day at the school. And we are then with the grade 7s. So they are basically the completing grade in that academic year. And the next year, they will then be proceeding to high school. So we meet with them, and we have both the boys and the girls. We believe that it's important that the boys form part of the discussion, that the discussion around sexual reproductive health and rights cannot happen without the boy child being involved. It's for us very important that the boy child also be educated. Why must the boy child be educated? Because we find it's important that the boy child must also understand his body and what happens to him. But more importantly, that a boy child must be able to preserve the dignity of the girl child. That the boy child must have an understanding when they see there's blood on the dress or the school uniform of a girl. That a boy child must be protective and respectful. And that is why it is very important for us that when we go into the schools, that we educate both the boy child and the girl child. Of course, what we have found is that the children do not have any safe spaces where they can talk about this. In our society, speaking about sex education, it's a taboo. So it's a cultural taboo, and it is very, very difficult then for children to have these conversations with their parents. And so we always try and also say to the parents that if you are not teaching your children and speaking to your children, who are? and where are they getting information from, and what type of information are they being provided with. So we encourage parents to really try and be open and find ways to address this issue. But when we go into the schools, it really creates a safe space for these young children to be able to ask questions, to be able to share their experiences that they cannot normally share with their teachers and with their parents. Due to HIV and AIDS, we have many child-headed households, and many of these children stay with grandparents and they grow up with grandmothers, which makes it even more difficult for them to have somebody to talk to. So we try and create a safe space in the school where the children can come and speak to us and ask the questions in a safe environment where there is no judgment. We also then provide the dignity kits, like the first presenter have shown. We provide exactly the same dignity kits, and we will always try and put something nice in for them together with everything else. So it will either be a manicure set or different Q-tics or, you know, a chocolate or something that they at that age would enjoy. So that's the one. The other thing that we do, or the other project that we run, is that we have established a partnership with the South African Police Service. The South African Police Service has what we call a victim empowerment center. And at the Victim Empowerment Center, that is where women who are abused and raped and children and so come to when something has happened to them. And not necessarily to open a case, but sometimes it is just important that they have somebody to speak to and somebody to listen to. So we then provide the victim empowerment centers of the police stations. We have 3 police stations in particular: Hillbrow, Kempton Park, and Kwatema Tsakani. Those 3 police stations, we then provide them also with these dignity kits, so that when a woman comes or a girl comes, then they at least have a face cloth, a toothbrush, pads, underwear, sometimes clothes that they can provide for them, because in the budget of the South African Police Service, they do not make provision for this. So it is very important for us to have this partnership also with the police. And we encourage our member churches to form partnerships with the police. Some of the challenges that we have encountered is, of course, the first challenge, and I think people have spoken about it already, is, of course, period poverty. In South Africa, 7 million girls and women experience period poverty on a monthly basis. So we find that girls stay out of school for 4 to 5 days every month because they can't afford to buy pads. And 30% of these girls really cannot make it to school. So that for us is a very, very big concern. And that is why it is so important for us to be involved in the schools, to be involved in this project. And of course, if girls cannot go to school, then we sometimes find that women can also not go to work. And we are living in a country and in a sub-region where many people are living below the breadline, where people live below what is, you know, the standard amount of money that you need to survive during the day. So we really try and encourage this. We encourage our member churches also to have these, we call them PEDS drives, where they collect and encourage members on a Sunday to come with pads and things and put it at the back of the church. And then when they have collected a certain amount, then we go and give it to a school or to a police station. So I think that is how we run our project. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Reverend Liliana, for really starting with catching them young and not beginning with the women, I mean, the girl child only, but starting with the boy child. I think that's the formative years of boys and men. That is very important. A more aware and concerned and educated boy in these issues go on to become more sensitive men who can contribute to address period poverty, for example. So thank you so much. Also, I was fascinated by your collaboration with the police department, because we know in Global South, mostly the police stations are not that equipped to facilitate these particular challenges. And thereby we cannot leave the government to do everything, but it's a very good example. And I'm so happy your churches are also engaged there. So thank you so much to you and to all the previous speakers who brought in various perspectives, the faith perspective, and then the good practices in normal situation, but also in conflict and war situations. So I did not see many questions on the chat, but I would invite my colleague, maybe Nikki, to facilitate this next 10, 12 minutes to take up a few questions. Handle it the way you want it to be.
Indeed.
Over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dinesh. Thank you so much, Alexa. More so, thank you to our invited guests. Dinesh and Alexa, if you all hadn't been here, it wouldn't be as good a webinar as it has been. But if we didn't have these speakers, we wouldn't have gotten quite the rounded presentation we have gotten. We have heard about Sikhism and how the community is involved to destigmatize. We've heard about partnerships with the police. We've heard about the theological perspective and the WCC work in overall reproductive health. We have heard not just why a dignity kit, but what a dignity kit looks like. So for those of us like me who have heard the term and only thought that you put a pad or 5 in there and maybe a little my friend calls it sanitizer. No, Alexandra is saying to us, hey, there's far more to it than that. We have heard about the See Judge Act, and we heard that very painful story. Now, I have been studying the chats, and I've been hearing, thank you so much, thank you so much. I have heard the well dones. I have seen all of that, and I am arguing that since there are no questions for our facilitators, I want to turn it around. And I want to put the question at you, our beloved and precious and exceptionally welcome viewers. Because you know what? We are offering you the chance, and this is rare in many webinars, to speak. So my questions for you, and I'm deliberately not asking the facilitators because they have all these answers up their sleeves, out their mouth, at the front of their head, like how the Bible says you tie the word as a Jew to the front of your head so your children and your children's children will know. So here is my first question. What are some of the challenges you face regarding menstrual hygiene or menstruation in your context? Not the facilitators. We heard from them. I want to hear from you, the participants. Put it in the chat or indicate with a raise hand sign, and we'll hear from a few of you. We don't want the epistle. We want zeroed in points. If that's the question you don't want to answer, I have a second question. And the question is, what role, coming to you, Miss Nicole, all the way from the US and Cameroon, what role does culture play in prohibiting or promoting good menstrual hygiene? So how do we in our cultures encourage stigma or discourage stigma to menstrual hygiene? But Miss Nicole, your question is, what are some of the challenges in your context? Unmute and please, and speak to us in English. Unmute.
Okay, if I can unmute myself. Good morning, everyone. It's morning time here in Houston for me. And thank you so much, Reverend Nikki, for inviting me to this webinar. It's an honor for me to be here. And I've learned a lot. So I'm Nicole Pooley. I live in Houston, Texas in the US, but I'm originally from Cameroon. And I am an activist for women, gender, and girls empowerment. That's why I'm here today to listen and learn. Some of the challenges that I have seen back home with girls, usually in the rural area, is access. The main problem is access to resources. We talk about all these dignity kids. We talk about how to prevent, how to empower them, how to give them their dignity back. But as if they don't have access to those resources, all the talk is good, but it really doesn't do the work. So I would like to know, how can we, I know that WCC is in Cameroon in some areas, but how can we know where to send these girls, or at least start a conversation with someone so that they can have access to the resources that they need and be able to live a quote unquote normal life?
Amen. Thank you so much. So you want to find out from WCC or other how we can collaborate to ensure that there is a point that this can be done. Okay. And Najat, did I correctly pronounce your name?
I hope you hear me. My name is Najat, and I work with Global One, which is an organization that works on women empowerment. And I am based in Addis Ababa now, and I work with pastoralist girls and women mostly, and I'm from pastoralist community in East Africa. So I wanted to answer the question on the cultural, how culture limit or promote best practices on menstrual hygiene management. It's like where I come from, girls and women, and menstrual hygiene is not a topic to be discussed. It's it's like there's a lot of stigma tied up with the menstrual hygiene, menstruation or period itself. So and then access to sanitary materials is very much limited. So she sometimes she has to stay away from the family, or even in some areas women are just they have a place to stay in during their menstruation period. So it's quietly there is a lot of stigma tied. So what we do is we really do create a lot of awareness. We even support women in getting access to menstrual hygiene management. Like even we support some women groups as income generating activities to develop reusable and distribute for women in this area. So there is a lot of stigma. There is a lot of learning to be learned. There's a lot of unlearning for even the pastoralist women. And because the pastoralist women move a lot with their livestock and from time to time, and due to this, like there is a scarcity to materials, as well as there is a lot of culture, a lot of stigma into menstruation. So we are doing a lot of work, and I'm glad to get this opportunity. A lot of learning for us, and thank you.
Thank you so very much, Najat. Now, I want to ask the presenters, do any of you want to speak to breaking the stigma, or would you like me to respond? We have all of 2 minutes to respond, and then I need to answer the question about the WCC. Any of you as facilitators? Please go ahead, Lady Liliana.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think on breaking the stigma, it's so important that we educate. And what we have found is that we must really start with children in the confirmation class, because sometimes we think that no, children in the confirmation class is not affected, but violence in we had a camp for confirmation children, and these are between the ages of 13 and 18, and they were already having multiple partners. because the understanding is you are not a man if you don't have multiple partners. So boys of 13 and 14-year-old were telling us that they are already engaging sexually with multiple partners because that is what is required from them. So it is so important that we continue to break the stigma, that we continue to educate, that we continue to raise awareness, not just for the kids, but that we also bring the parents into the discussion and help the parents and empower the parents and give the parents language that they can use to be able to speak to the children.
Thanks so much, Lady Lilana. Now, we said confirmation classes, but let's remember we are multi-faith. So while it works as confirmation classes for us in the Christian faith, for the Sikhs, it would be using the Holy Scripture. For Islamic communities, it would also probably be using Holy Scripture and or community-based conversations, but the message is the same. Work with all ages through the educational aspect of your religion. Well said, Sister Lilana. Evans, you have half a minute.
Thank you. Very quickly, I think what we need to assess is available information. What do people think they know? Two, what is the misinformation in what they know? What is the misinformation in what they know? What is the disinformation in what they know? And how are these ingredients affecting policy, budgets, and service delivery? And again, we need to be context-based. One region different from the other region. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So here we are being told, let's look at it from a policy and a polity perspective. Find out what is known, find out what is not correct about what is known. See how we change not just the culture, but the laws of the land. And the laws don't have to just be what is written in the legislation, but the laws of the mind. Bob Marley from my home country says, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. So as it relates to access, I cannot always speak for access, but you have raised a very good point, Nicole. You are challenging us to identify the different places across the region, each country actually, across the globe, where we can reach out to folk for distribution of menstrual hygiene products, dignity kits, etc. So I want to challenge each of us. Think about whether you are able to assist in providing dignity kits. Think about whether you are interested in being one of those through whom we could channel some of the materials and information in the wider context, and let's see how we can take it from there. The WCC Secretariat has a role to play, but remember, each of you is part of this ecumenical movement. Each of us is part of making menstrual hygiene destigmatized in this day and time. So, siblings, friends, those of you who don't consider me friends, all of us, I want to thank us so very much for making this menstrual hygiene webinar yet again a critical, engaging, enlightening conversation. Please remember, you can contact any of us through communications at wcc-coe.org, and our tech person, Walter, will put that information in the chat. Otherwise, some of you already are in touch with me via my network. Some of you are in touch with Dinesh. Some of you are in touch with Alexa via our networks. Just before we close, Dinesh has a very quick announcement about an upcoming event in almost a week's time, less than a week, just about a week's time. Dinesh, over to you, and then we have our closing remarks.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much, Nikki, for facilitating this in a more very engaging way, the Q&A. Many of us will be coming to you, Reverend Liliana's place, to Johannesburg. The WCC is having a central committee meetings. And before that, we have a 1 week of thematic seminars on 8 different programs of the WCC. We will be having it in Johannesburg from 10th to 17th. So those of you who are in South Africa, look out for us, and we'll be happy to see you over there. But at this time also, I just take a note to thank all the speakers and resource persons, those who spoke so passionately and highlighted this such very important issues. And I could also see many suggestions that these issues should go to the pulpit. And I was very challenged by Ivan's examples of how they are already doing it. And there are many other faiths. Dr. Tejinder, it was brilliant the way you have highlighted the Sikh community's role, and particularly the others who responded about what good practices on dignity kit distributions in normal situation, but also in conflict situations such as Alexandra and others. So thank you so much on behalf of Alexa and Nikki and all other co-organizers from NCA and PAD. We would like to really thank everyone. At this point, maybe just about 30 seconds each for any of my colleagues to highlight, especially Nikki and Alexa, for any programmatic points that you want to highlight, starting with you, Alexa.
Thank you, Dinesh. Just to say, I think Princess was the one who asked about if the WCC is doing any menstrual health campaigns or anything like that. We do have Thursdays in Black, which Reverend Nikki leads, which is just covering gender-based violence broadly. But also on the health side of things, the Reproductive Health and HIV Working Group is developing workshops for churches to engage reproductive health from a faith perspective. So menstrual health is a part of that. If you are interested in following along, I can put our information in the chat and you can connect with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before
Nikki?
I even share about Thursdays in Black yet again and say that I'm coming to South Africa, also just to say, Rev Lil, Dr. Princess, you're both in South Africa. Please connect. Siblings, there is so much work to be done, and we are seeing that anything related to menstruation is intersectional. It's not just women's problems, it affects everyone. Any issue that affects men affects women, because as Brother Evans said, he's the son of a mother and the father of a daughter. We are all connected. So, what next for us? Join the campaign, share your Bible studies, think about being part of the worldwide campaign to end rape and violence. Remember, economic disadvantaging of someone is violence. Take the opportunity to transform a life, to transform our contexts. Thursdays in Black, for a world without rape or violence. You can be an agent for change. Thank you so much, Dinesh and Alexa. Thank you so very much, all of you. Thank you to the presenters. God bless us all.